Welcome back to Textron Unplugged. My name is Cassandra Chin, and today we have Abdelfettah Sghiouar.
Stop.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, Abdelfettah Sghiouar. Hi everyone. I am a developer advocate at Google. I am originally from Morocco, where we are shooting right now, but I live in Stockholm, Sweden. So,
How did you get into technology?
oh boy, that's a very long story. Um, I guess the getting into technology was when my father bought me a computer at 14 years old. That's the first time I had a computer, and I was like, when I was a child, I was quite curious child. I was quite like I fully dismantled my parents' TV that they bought like 6 months after they bought it. I just opened it because I was curious to see how it works from inside. And so back in the days in Morocco, it wasn't very common to have internet at home, so we would go to cyber cafes, which I think they don't exist anymore. But I spent a lot of my time going to cyber cafes, learning how to code, mostly C++, and coming home and applying those learnings on my home computer. And so that's how it started. And then eventually I finished my high school, and I was not a really like brilliant student, which is kind of related to your keynote yesterday about you don't have to be a genius to be in computer science. So I went to what we call them here a trade school. So it's the kind of schools where you would learn how to be a plumber or to be like a woodworker. And those schools also do computer science, right? It's a 2 years degree. So it's an associate degree, I think, in America, where you would just learn like a trade. So my first 2 years was telecommunication. So a lot of low-level electronics, some programming. I did some assembly, which is wild. And then after that, I went to another school, which is kind of the same idea. I did another 2 years of programming, so pure programming. And then after that, I went and got a master's in computer science. And and then during this entire year, I've been coding, playing with computers, playing with electronics. I am still big fan of hardware, generally speaking, like low-level electronics. And that's how it went.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on like education and speaking?
Yeah, so I'm a developer advocate now since almost 2 years. And before that, I've done like public speaking. I've delivered content in various forms, podcasts, videos, whatever. And I fundamentally believe that a developer advocate is a part-time educator, because a big part of delivering content, even if it's technical contents, is you have to wrap it in a story. And to be able to build a story and build the content for that story and make the content make sense and make it clear and be articulate, you have to have not like a sort of an education approach to it, not in the academia sense. I'm not talking about like standing in front of an auditorium and talking for 4 hours, but you still have to have the same approach, the same way of structuring your content, structuring your talk, making sure that you are hitting on all the basics so you don't like lose the audience. And I myself had a job as a part-time teacher in one of the schools I've been to. So I was both a student and a teacher, and I was teaching like programming. So I taught C++, I taught algorithms for 6 months. I did not like it that much. I think mostly because as an educator, you don't really make that much money, which is kind of sad. But I think that's kind of helped me learn the skill of how do you teach people stuff, right? And I think that's quite important if you are going to be in a situation or in a position where you're addressing a public and you're like, broadcasting some content to them, whether it's like physical through like conferences or even online where you are doing stuff on videos or podcasts. So I still today, when I am shooting YouTube videos, I would still go and structure my content in a storyline and write the points that I want to hit and make sure I hit all of them. I don't always script my talks. I very rarely script my talks. Videos is a different story because you kind of have to script them, especially if you have a fixed amount of time that you have to like do this video in. And So yeah, so I think that like having some sort of experience of being an educator is important if you're gonna educate developers on technical concepts, basically.
What kind of videos do you shoot?
We have our own YouTube channel on Go Cloud Tech is called, and we do mostly videos about like very short videos, like 10 minutes, about usually it's about one specific feature of one specific product. So we would just like go, oh, here is how to use this product to achieve this particular use case, or here is how to do this particular thing in this particular products, right? And then the longer formats we do are usually podcasts. So I co-host a podcast called Kubernetes Podcast by Google. And in that podcast, we do 30 to 45 minutes interviews where we talk with people. And that's slightly different formats because it's more like free-flowing conversation. But you also have to be, again, the education part of it is that you have to be able to improvise, because we don't want our podcast to be scripted, because then it will feel kind of mechanic or robotic. But we still want to be able to like ask follow-up questions and, like kind of like work with the material you're receiving from your guests to like drive the conversations. And that's also, I think, is part of what educators do. So
Yeah, that's interesting. How's your involvement with the Moroccan community?
so I'm involved with I've been part of the community for a very long time, although I live abroad. The biggest community I'm involved in is called Geeks Blah Blah. So it's a community that was started by Mohammed Abu Lait, and so it was an online community. It came from a previously existing community that used to be called Facebook Developer Circles, which doesn't exist anymore. And then they kind of like rebranded it to Geeks Blah Blah. So Geeks Blah Blah is an online community. They do an online conference every year called Blah Blah Conf, and it's essentially it's 100% Moroccan dialect. So pretty much most of the content is in Moroccan dialect. So I help them. I am on their live stream sometimes. I do talk at their conference. I help them find guests, find interesting people to talk to. They have actually they have a series which I was on a very long time ago called Moroccan Success Stories, which is essentially stories of Moroccans that like made a career for themselves. And because I travel a lot and I meet a lot of people, I try to like find people all over the place to be guests on that series. But yeah, generally speaking, just like participate, try to help, be as helpful as possible.
Do you think that having the learning software through the Moroccan dialect helps bridge the gap between like language and coding?
I do believe so. So, like for the background story, Morocco used to be colonized by France. So that's why we speak French in this country, right? And when I did my studies, I did most of my studies in French. And I also worked in a company where the main spoken language was French, right? I am noticing more and more that the upcoming new community is kind of more leaning toward English, generally speaking. But I think that's like if you are trying to approach the people who are already in the computer science space, then using English is fine. But the community is also trying to approach those who are not there yet, those who are like thinking about it. And for that, I think speaking in a language that they understand is important. I mean, the funny thing is even if the content itself is in Moroccan dialect, the technical terms are still in English because you cannot like always translate them. But at least like explaining stuff in a language which is easily understandable by everyone, I think is important in bridging the gap between the tech world and those who have no idea what the tech world is. They just hear words like developer, DevOps, cloud, and they want to understand what these are.
And do you think there's a lot of job opportunities for software development in Morocco?
Yes, we have. I mean, that's how I started my career, right? We have quite a lot of people doing computer science or development, generally speaking. A long time ago, it used to be mostly consulting companies. So companies that are French or American that like open their offices here, hire local talents, and then they would work on projects abroad, is either in France or in the US or in, French-speaking Canada or something like that. But over time, even big tech companies now are implementing themselves in Morocco. So we have a huge Oracle office here in Morocco, in Casablanca. We have IBM, we have Microsoft, we have even AWS. Actually, they have an office here, or they acquired the company that had an office in Morocco. So now it's not that company anymore. It's IBM. The company originally is French, but they had a satellite office in Morocco. So when they acquired them, they all become parts of AWS. They have, and then you have a lot of other smaller companies that are actually products companies, so making tech products, and then still quite a lot of like consulting. A huge part of the tech scene is front end in Morocco. React is huge here. Next.js is quite big. Angular as well. C Sharp, a lot of Java, a lot of Azure, Azure Cloud and AWS Cloud. So yeah, quite a lot of opportunities.
Do you think the tech scene has been growing over the years?
Definitely, yes, I think so. Because we have a lot of schools teaching engineers, teaching computer science. So I think that the scene have been growing tremendously. And now we even have like a ministry of digital transformation that is tasked with moving the country toward like being more online and moving away from paperwork.
I think that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see. It's moving in the right direction. It's moving slowly to my taste, but it's moving in the right direction.
And for the education part with like computer science here, is it mainly universities which have it? Or do you know if they're teaching lower level kids any technology?
So that's a very interesting question. Used to be mostly universities, and used to be that in order to go to computer science, you have to follow the traditional, the traditional like high school degree, bachelor degree, master's degree, etc. In parallel, there was the school where I went, which is this trade school I talked about, this associate degree, right? But recently we have we had a school opening up called 1337, so LEET. That's such a nerdy name, and it's the basically a peer learning school. It's a concept that exists in France called 42. Again, another nerdy name. Which essentially the way it works is that they get people in without, like, if you want to sign up, you don't have to have any education background. You don't have to even have, I think, a high school degree. You sign up to the school. They do like a pre-selection. They do like an intensive boot camp for, I think, few weeks, and then they select the people who they think they have potential. The program lasts 2 to 3 years, and during these 2 to 3 years, you are on a peer learning program. So there is no formal teachers. There are no classes. You have like a roadmap that you have to follow to learn, and at the end of each step at that roadmap, there is a project, and you have to finish the project and get your projects peer reviewed by your peers. So it's just people teaching each other. So it's not like a typical boot camp as in North American boot camp where you have like a 6 months and you become a full stack developer. But this is a boot camp in the sense that it's kind of the same setup, except that there is no teachers, there is no like classes. It's like just people helping each other learn.
I think that's a good way to do it, and it gets a lot of people opportunity to become software developers.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it also gives people opportunity to do it in a shorter time. Because if you want to do the traditional path, it would take you typically 5 years, right? Like you have to do a bachelor and a master's. And so this is a great way to like shortcut that and get to the field very quickly. And there are actually people that doesn't even finish the whole 3 years. There are people that would find jobs at the end of 1 year or 2 years. Because like if you are like very curious and you want to learn, you can like speed through the roadmap and either finish it early or get enough knowledge to be able to get a job.
That's really cool that you can kind of speed through it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I learned a lot about like the software industry in Morocco today.
Nice.
So thank you, Abdel.
Thank you. I'm happy. I'm glad you did. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.